Hello there, and welcome to this little corner of YouTube. Or not so little corner, it's swelled now to accommodate 3,300 subscribers on the nose. Not quite on the nose of the corner, but meaning that I just setting this up and I thought, oh, 300, 3,300 subscribers. I think the last time I looked, I just missed or just gone over 3,200. So thank you, everybody who subscribed in the past couple of weeks. Yes, I've been missing. Yes, I will explain more. But my intention today it's actually a lovely Saturday afternoon. Yeah, I was torn between walking and doing this, but I thought if I don't do this now, I may end up unable to do it later on for lots of reasons. But I thought I would because this week has been a bizarre week for me. Excuse me. Um, sort of I think I mentioned last week I'm taking a new medication or a change in medication, and that has floored me. It takes a while to get over the side effects, and if I don't, I'll be asking for a change in it again because being constantly tired is not good for me and not good for focusing on things either. But I feel pretty good today. So let's see how it goes on. Right, I'm just going to adjust hopefully my light a little bit so I can try and get rid of some shadows. I'm not promising I will or anything else. So Inktober 2024, let's have a little recap at my little book that I'm keeping. So I've got day one was Ambler, and I initially left this as black, white and grey, monochrome, but I went back and added colour, and I do like the way colour brings things to life. Mary Shell. Now, this one I have changed a little bit in that I took somebody's suggestion, dug out my chalk pastels, and added some chalk pastel to these, which is great. It's intensified the colours, it's added to the shadows, and I thought, okay then. And I actually enjoyed using them despite my protestations. That I showed you was that one's better. Haven't done anything else with it though. Amplion we did in my last video, we did three tangles, no, 3, 4 and 5. So Amplion, I don't know, is one. And again here I've added both graphite shading and colour with coloured pencils. And I even dug out a white charcoal pencil from Generals. Yes, I found a box of them. I finally found them. Again, chalks, there's something about chalk that actually works with this. I think it's the softer colours, the less saturated colours. They're more vintagey, which tends to be my way these days. I prefer vintagey colours, and it seems to go with the distress inked background. So that worked really nicely. So I haven't done them all. I found that once I've added graphite and blended it in, the paper becomes too shiny, or the surface becomes too shiny to accept any of the chalk pastels. This one I took a different approach again with chalk pastels. I decided to add some I'd put graphite on and I left those alone. But for the ones where there's colour, I decided to use one colour both to add shading to the tangle, but also as a shading underneath it. And I quite like that. In fact, coming back to it, I like it more now than I did when I did it. It's an example of needing fresh eyes on things to be able to see what's going on, or to look at things in reflection. So in reflection, I like those. I did 2 Heart Nouveaus with the chalk pastels, and then I needed to nap, and I haven't gone back to it. So we're on to day 6 today. I've got plenty of white paper here, but my mind goes to strange things, and I remembered I had in my stash some coloured papers. This is Sand Faber-Castell toned paper for drawing. So it is 15% cotton. I have found it will take a little bit of water, so not sloshes of watercolour, but it will take, almost just damp brushes of colour on, or damp brushes to move something like Inktense or watercolours around. This one is actually a grey-green colour, This is Clairefontaine Paint On Mixed Media paper. Its surface is much smoother. It's also a much heavier paper. This one has got a texture to it and you can feel it. If I remember rightly, this one, the pens don't particularly like to muddle fuddle around on them too much. Let me turn my light up. Does it go up? Yes, it does. I must have knocked it down a bit. Okay. This one is the grey from Faber-Castell. I don't know whether they called it grey actually, but it's the toned paper again. This is the moss green toned paper from Faber-Castell. No, not Faber-Castell, Fabriano. The toned papers are from Fabriano. And this then is the natural mixed media paper, the Clairefontaine Paint On. And I have got a denim blue one, but it's quite a dark colour, and I've got black somewhere. But I'm not in the mood for, I might try black and use either the Sakura Moonlight pens or some other gel pens to try some things, but not today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick out three shades. So I'm going to pick the Faber-Castell ones. And here's me, I neatly ordered them. So I have one of each, you know, boom, boom, boom. It doesn't matter what order I use them in or mix them, muddle them up. Because I plan to do 3 today because I haven't looked at the next tangles after day, whatever it is. I'll get up to see 7, 6, 7, 8 after day 8. So I know I'm well behind. As I said, this week has been a funny old week. Glasses required. So let's just get some guidelines on here for me. And if I do them all at once, that'll be one less job, isn't it? And I can burble on while I do it as well, which will be fine. So yeah, so it's been a funny old week for me. Lots of things cropped up this week that meant I couldn't really find the time. I think I had 2, was it this week? I can't remember. I know that just things happened. I had a nice day out Wednesday with my friend Liz. And if Liz ever sees this, thanks Liz, we had a great time. We visited Dufferin Gardens. She has never been there. I say that with a bit of shock and all, but until about 2 years ago or a year ago, I'd not been there either, a year and a half ago. So I can't mumble and grumble really. But she loved it. She decided she'd join the National Trust there and then because she knows her granddaughter will love it, and it's somewhere lovely to bring kids, and it's just such beautiful surroundings. And I can't believe we've never been here. I'd heard nice things about the gardens, but yeah, I love it. So I was tempted to go back today because it's such a nice day here now, but I decided not to because it would be quite peoply with people, you know, doing people things on a Saturday. Liz and I both agree we much prefer the world on in weekdays out of term time, and avoiding weekends for the reason, you know, just, oh gosh, that's not a very straight line there, that it matters overly, but you know, let's at least make an attempt, is it, Angela? And it was lovely. We had some nice tea. Well, I had tea, she had coffee, and I eventually had a lovely ice cold large paper cup of chilled tap water, which I thought was brilliant because I don't like buying bottled water unless I absolutely have to. Of course, I didn't think to take one of my many reusable water containers because I'm a bit of an idiot at times. But it was really lovely. We had an earlyish lunch because, well, it was beginning to get busy in the cafe, and it is Clairefontaine. And Liz was getting a bit peckish. It was a bit too early for me. I did have something to eat, but yeah. And we had a nice wander round. And Liz got overawed by the fact they had red kale as well as purple kale. and Cavolo Nero, 'cause she loves those, and I think, "Ugh, they're just so nasty and bitter." And I don't care how good they're supposed to be for you. There are alternatives that taste much nicer as far as I'm concerned. And I told her this, and she went, "'Cause I eat relatively healthily when I do bother to look after myself. But, getting me to look after myself some days is quite difficult, but that's a whole different story. So I'm just preparing all of these now at the beginning. So that was Wednesday. Of course, then it left me fairly happy on Thursday to a degree, but then suddenly everything kicked in, and yeah, I lost the will to have energy, and the same yesterday. Yesterday, I could barely keep my eyes open, and that's how it goes. Now, the nice thing about these Fabriano toned papers is because they've got a nice texture, they'll work well with the um, chalk pastels. So I'm going to dig those out in a while once I've done all the drawing. But let's make a start. Now, to draw with, I've got 3 different thicknesses of Sakura microns. I've got an O3, an O1, and an O5, simply because I like the choice. So the first one that I'm going to do, I'm going to bundle all my papers up together-ish, is one that's called Bahn. I made the heading spaces just a little bit too big, but it's fine. And that one is by Midori Furuhashi, who's a CZT. And this is for day 6. I'll put a number 6 over here, just like so. So I know that it's day 6. Actually, this paper is smoother than I remembered it. Perhaps it improves with age, because I think I've had this in my stash. I think I bought it about 2 years or so ago, and it is really nice. Um, you get a lot of pages in the pack. I can't remember how many, which makes it really quite reasonably priced, especially for something that's got cotton mixed in as well. Do you know, I don't know which way this is going on. So I have been drawing on days when I felt able to. And I've actually got 2 um, colouring no, I've lie, I've got 3 colouring templates done with a Halloweeny kind of theme. I know that my Haunted colouring book was out not long ago. I think um, my complimentary copies, my author copies or illustrator copies, are arriving, I think, Tuesday next week, if the email is to be believed. Um, so that's nice and fun. I'm actually going to put the other 2 out the way, because moving them around, I keep fuddling with them and fiddling with them. So S-Bahn is an interesting tangle. Now then, let me see if this will behave itself and zoom in. Oh, it does. Oh, how excellent. There we go. And does it wobble in and out just a bit? So hopefully that's turned the autofocus frozen. Okay, so this is an interesting tangle. And I've taken it relatively literally to a degree. But let's start with hopefully, what was the original one? Because I drew it a second time and I thought, hang on, I've done something wrong here. but it worked out to be as in a variation. So this one starts with 4 semicircles or C shapes. If I make one thick because I've made a mess drawing the line, I have to do it to all and then it looks intentional, like so. And then you have stems or spokes coming out. And yes, I'm drawing mine as if they're going through so that they actually tie up on the other side. The next job is to connect the letter C's around these. Well, at least I think it's the next job. I'm sure it is, like so. Okay, so you just connect them behind the stem. So it's almost like they're going through a hole. And this central bit will hopefully end up looking like it's domed upwards, as if these are pushing things up. You ought to be able to see me as I'm making the movements of what's happening with my body, that you saw my hand moving, but I'm doing this here, honestly. The next step is to just draw a circle around them. Not a perfect circle, it doesn't matter if it's perfect or not. It really, really doesn't matter. Now, the lengths of these can be changed. That's a simple variation. I think mine are longer perhaps than in the versions I've seen, but it doesn't matter because the methodology is the same and that will automatically give something that's a little bit different. Now, the next bit is it's almost tracing these around here and then bringing it up to create this kind of shape here. So you're joining one side of this in a bar or stem to this here. And we'll do that all the way round. Doesn't have to be exact. This one is a little bit shorter than the others, so I'm just going to elongate it a bit. Well, that's quite interesting on its own, and you could complete this just by putting another circle around it if you wanted to. But what Midori did is to draw arches from the middle of this to the middle there. So like letter M's, rounded M's, to the middle and then out, to the middle and out, middle and out. Not perfect. It's not going to be. And that is the pattern in its essence, where we've got this weaving of over and under elements of the design. Now, I'm tempted just to fill these in with black because I like that appearance that we've got something, going. It just helps to accentuate this weaving as if there's a sky or a darkness behind. As you can see here, I'm going to have to be careful because it does take a little moment or two for this ink to dry on the paper. But that's fine, all's good. Do like a bit of contrast, especially as I'm working on much darker paper than the ones I've coloured with distress ink. The distress inks are quite delicate in colour. Yes, you can get very heavy-handed with them, and some colours are quite intense in their nature. But these, are the colours that you get. Now then, one thing I wish I'd done was to make this circle a little bit bigger because these have become quite spindly here, almost like they could break. But what I do want to do is add some ink where elements join, just to hold them together. And here I'm just going to extend the bottom of that M just a little bit down inside so I can have a little bit more of a space for some inky glue there. And what I also think I might do, but this isn't the original one, I'm just going to aura all the way around it, just to give it a feeling of being complete. There's something about that. And again, I'm just going to add some inky glue or inky depths in those little corners, which is really good. This reminds me of the kind of shape you'd get in Gothic stained glass windows. Often it's inside a circle. You get these kind of flowery shapes, not quite as mechanical as that, though. So that's one. So let's have a look at some others. So I may just draw a variation or a variation with a couple of variations in, if that makes sense. I've placed all of those completely wrong, but do I care? Nope. So this is what I'm going to do, because this is the one that how I mess these up, because I join these together and then put my spokes in. Because yes, we all, and sometimes when you do something wrong, you think, oh no, and then you realize actually that's quite a nice variation, like so. And then I'm going to draw the circle around. I'm going to have to extend those particular lines. Oops, that was a wobbly line. Okay, it'll be fine. Extend those just a little bit, like so. And so we've got a completely different central area. I could, and I think I might, pop a little semicircle in here, perhaps flattened a little bit so I've got a bit more space on these. And then I'll add that darker ink there. Could have been done with being more circular, but then the outside is more of that kind of shape as well, so it's fine. Practice makes perfect, they say. So there we go. It's okay as it is. Okay, so again, I'm going to do, these are going to be quite little because I've only got little bits of these lines sticking out. But do you know what? That's perfectly fine as well. Because again, it gives a different feel to the pattern, and um, that's what all of this is about. And then instead of joining them the way we did, I'm going to go to the center and I'm going to draw almost like a petal shape, like a Gothic arch that goes from the center of these sections to the next center, as it were. It joins the centers together. So I really quite like that. It's got a different feel to it. And of course, these can be filled in with that inky goodness. Black ink is always great for helping to bring out that contrast and the development of things. I do have some white pens up here. Yes, I do. Just realised I might need white pens, but we'll see. So in the centre of each of these, I'm going to put a teardrop shape, like so. Then I'm going to add nesting variations of that teardrop shape just to create almost like a flower beginning to bloom from these areas. We've got mechanical, turning organic. It's quite a nice idea, I suppose. So we've got that. And then I can manage it there just about, but on the end of these, in this case, I'm just going to put a lovely little circle. So I really like that. I do, it's true. Of course, on these ones, I could also put circles, perhaps with a teardrop shape on the top, whatever else. And I could even have things. We'll do that in a moment. 'Cause my head's going to things. So I'm going to make this a bit easier for myself. And this is something you could do as well, because there's nothing that says we can't draw the shapes in we'd like. So I'd quite like my so this would be our inner circle, which would be this bit, sort of like where we draw the C shapes. This would be the outer edge that gives us that border there. And then actually that one could do with perhaps a little bit like that. That would help it look like it's going through this, wouldn't it? As if there's a space there. It reminds me of what's the one? Huggins, a bit, where you get those little shapes that curve round. Because that works quite nicely. And we could, if we wanted to, just it feels a bit odd with those just stuck there on their own. So I'm just going to put some little M shapes there. I say obviously, there's more you can add to a drawing the bigger you create it. And I'm using quite a big pen here. For the next one, I'm going to switch down a size to 03 because that makes a difference on how everything appears. So here I'm going to put a C shape there, 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 and there. And just by adding that pencil circle, it's made it a lot easier for me to arrange these nicely. And then I'm going to draw my shapes in yet because I do want to. I do I? I'm trying to think, do I? Yes, I do. So I'm going to draw these in and out to that outermost circle. So they may not be entirely exactly the same length because my circle isn't perfect. Goodness forbid if I ever drew a perfect circle. But it's good enough. It means that things will be more or less the same length. Then I'm going to connect these in this kind of manner where they lace through. Oops, I've done it wrong there. Okay, we'll do that. I'll do that to all of them like so. So we've got a strange kind of thing going on, but I think it'll work because I'm going to be colouring these in black anyway, aren't I? Yes. So that'll be fine. That works. If I hadn't done that, it would have been quite confusing, but as it is, that's working out quite nicely, I think. Yeah. Okay, and then I'm going to draw this circle in like so. Yeah. What I want to do here is in the middle of this section, I'm going to draw a line going out this way. That is really not very neat, as in symmetrical or whatever. It's a bit squished. But let's just say, I don't know, a dinosaur walked all over it. It's been squashed by a diplodocus because, that's what they do, apparently. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to join these sections together in a way that makes them look like perhaps a little bit like petals. So they are arching out a little bit beyond the pencil line, like so. And then I need to do something on the end. And what I'm going to do here, is I'm just going to draw almost like little arrows. Reminds me almost like a compass rose now. So that's an interesting idea. I do like maps, and I'm intrigued with the idea of using maps or, illustrating maps in some way. I haven't done anything. Or the idea of them being a series of instructions. What we're doing here is that. Hello, Z Germany. It's lovely to have you here. Lovely to see you. Thank you. And everybody else who's joined me. I'm sorry, I've been so engrossed in drawing, I've forgotten to say hello to everybody. So thank you ever so much for joining me on this Saturday afternoon. It's lovely here in the valleys of South Wales. It's very sunny, and I'm feeling very warm on the other side of my window. And it really is a nice day out. There's a bit of a breeze, but I elected to do this because the world is too peoply when it's like this. But I'm glad you're enjoying this, said Germany. It's all that movement from the hearts and hundreds that are catching my eye here. Oh, thank you so much. That's really lovely of you to say so. Okay, so this one is, I like it just as it is, but I think what I might do is just add like a little aura around these. And I may carry, do I want to carry that up? I think I might. Up through the middle, should have changed to my O1, but as long as I'm careful, we'll be okay. They look like little circles on the top. I'm trying to draw tiny, tiny little triangles. It's also caught that little bit that overlapped there. It's almost like a continuation now of these little shapes there. So, oops, one left. So we've got that one there. And of course, the opportunities to go forwards are endless because I could just take this. I'm going to use my pencil again. And just very gently draw a circle around. It's a bit off center, but sometimes when things are drawn off center, they add a sort of like uniqueness, a bit of quirkiness to them, something that is, and it adds some kind of dimension in a weird way. It's almost like I can't explain it. It's a visual thing I can't put into words. And of course, things like shading and highlighting and adding color will help with that. But I think I just want to go from the middles of these, and I'm going to leave a gap between them for yet another um, triangle arrow, I suppose, pointer, compass rose thingy. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It's only if you point it out to somebody, they'll likely notice, especially if you've got lots of them in a design. Same thing. And I could keep doing this if I wanted to, right the way round, with another round and so on. It could be as big or as little as you want. And the lovely thing is that we've got petals here that are big enough that if we wanted to, we could add patterns into those. Oops, that's okay. And again, just adding those little bits there. That's a very squished one again. Diplodocus came by again to have a look and decided to put its foot on my drawing. But that's okay. Hasn't destroyed it completely, has added some uniqueness to it. I don't know why I chose Diplodocus. Okay, so how else can we do this? I am going to start by drawing a circle. And I'm going to add in my C shapes. I'm going to do this slightly different way. Then I'm going to draw the next one around. So it's going to be actually, it's the same way as that. I've just done it as an alternative. I'm just going to draw them just that little bit above. I'm going to guess how far they go. I could have made them much longer, but I just feel the need for cutely condensed patterns. Okay, so from here, I'm going to give quite a sharp slope down and a rounded top like this. And then I'm just simply going to put a circle at the top of each of these. That was nice. That one nestled in between those, so that's something for me to think about if I ever do this again. Then I'm going to use these to join the arcs to. Trying to keep the distance between um, the inner line and the outer line about the same. And that's worked really nicely. I'm also going to put a little line there, or a little very thin triangle, just to add some shadow there. And part of me wants to fill these in, but part of me wants to do it with a pattern instead. So perhaps here I can fill it in. Perhaps I should have changed to my O. So I'll do 2 of these with the O3 and 2 with an O1 for comparison. The O3 adds a lot more ink, oops, and gives a much darker filling of the space. Whereas if I use the O1, is that an O1? It is an O1. Because the line's that much finer, even with the same sized little circles in their little orbs, as they call them in Zentangle, little rounded objects, little seeds, rounded seeds. There is a slight difference in how dark and how intense they are. And I can repeat that in these other sections, perhaps. By varying the size of these, I can also play with how intense how much ink there is in that space, so how dark it appears. So with these, they are bigger than the ones that I've just drawn, and this is with the O1. I'm getting here, if I'm not careful, I'll end up with very neatly organised little circles. If I draw over them, I'm not going to worry too much if they're not perfectly spherical. Again, just a matter of, it's just creating a texture to fill the space with. And I do enjoy textures. Textures and patterns, nature and architecture, and just all kinds of things. Spooky and whimsical, abstract and realist. Oh, which one's that one? That's the O3. And all kinds of things catch my attention. I tend towards very stylized work more than realistic. And I have done my fair share of sketching and drawing from, in a realistic way. And I really enjoyed it. But then the bits I enjoyed most about that was playing with shadow and highlights. I've got I say huge, it's an A2 drawing of a trilobite that I did in chalk and charcoal, white chalk and charcoal, on a grey piece of constructional sugar paper. And it's framed and it hangs in my bathroom. And when I took it in, one of the art teachers went, "And what is this?" It's a trilobite. You know, this they scurry around and, things like that. And then she said, "And where do you find them?" I saw they were found at the bottom of the sea, and there's still places. She said, "Are you sure they're not on land?" And suddenly the penny dropped. She thought they were still things that were living. I said, "No, they went extinct a long time ago before the dinosaurs." And she went, "That's a good thing because one of those would be scary if it was that big." I didn't tell her they lived. Some of them were big. They look a bit like woodlice, granny grey slaters, pill bugs, I think you're called in America. So that's quite nice there. And this sort of like ability to add little details here and perhaps to add another aura. You can see where I'm going with this now. This isn't in my original sketchbook, by the way, in this kind of way, at least. And then I'm going to add another. So I'm adding an aura around the bead, and then I'm auraing these other lines, which again will end up giving some dimension, depth to this when it's shaded and shadowed. So that's quite fun. I'm enjoying that one. Okay, so I've done a few here that are with 4 spokes. What about other numbers of spokes? I'm going to start with a trusty circle, and then I'm going to find the center roughly. Hopefully you can. Oh, excuse me. And I'm going to draw in 3 sections. And with that, I'm going to use my O5. Hopefully you can see that. Yes, you should be able to. I can see on my screen. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw in 3 letter C's like this. I will take my pencil and draw an aura around this so that I know where I'm going to go. I know where I'm going to go with this, so I'm going to take these just beyond. Again, there's sort of like, they're a continuation of these straight lines that point towards these gaps. So here as well. So you can see this. So I want these to be a continuation of that, really. And then I can happily complete this seed shape that has these poking out through those shapes. And then I can complete that. So we're going to have something that's quite a bit different here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend these straight lines just a bit more, because that will give me more or less the center of these areas. And then I'm going to take this up. I'm going to go like so, like so, like so, like so, to create quite a striking kind of, quite a pointy arch, almost like a Gothic arch. Oh, I do like myself a Gothic arch. And then from the tops, I'm going to put a dot right at the top, center. So again, it's imagining in between these lines. And then I'm going to go all the way down to where that line's been extended. When I draw things, I imagine those dots there. But when I'm learning something or, exploring something, I often find it useful to put dots and shapes in, just because I'm learning a new way of creating patterns or shapes or forms. These are more like motifs than they are, like patterns that repeat. I mean, they repeat in the sense that you can put them together in a grid pattern, I suppose, if you wanted to. But I find them very floral, very organic, and I would use them like that, tucked behind one another. Different numbers of petals is fun. So that's quite nice, and that gives a different feel. It's exactly the same as this really, almost. The centre's a bit different, but the same kind of idea, but it looks that little bit more unusual. And then I could do like I've done here. So I'm just going to extend these that little bit, or add lines in there, and then I'm just going to replicate a kind of Gothic arch kind of shape, or like a leaf that's had its middle vein cut out along with the tip. And again, I'm just going to put a dot there, and just let it come down. So again, I've got something that's a lot more complex than you would think. Now, if I wanted to, I could take this underneath and get them to join back here, but I'm not. I'm going to leave them as they are, and perhaps just put a little, I was going to say a cherry on the top. So let's let our beads be cherries, is it? You are. Shove that one under the line. In fact, I wouldn't need to, would I, if I was going to add some black to them? Like so. I've got to scan in so many pieces of paper after this, including last week's 3 days. I'm going to have to try and use Canva or something to put them together, or try and put a little video or something together where I can have it going through on Instagram or whatever. This here is quite nice, and I quite fancy having a rounded circle then, perhaps. Just a circle in the middle. Something a little bit different. And again, those sections can be filled in different ways. I'm going to use my O1 here. I could fill them in just with black ink, but I get irritated by filling things in with black ink unless I'm using a brush pen. I'm not sure I've got one to hand. I most probably do have in the metal plant pot on my desk that's filled with pens and things, but it's nice to show you other ways of doing things, I think. There's always a solution to something if you don't like doing it. So this is hatching. And technically, it's not cross hatching because you'd have lines going in a different direction. But you use lines to add shading instead of solid colours, or, things like graphite. The colour hasn't changed in the background, but what the hatching does is the black lines add that darkness. And so there's an illusion that that colour is shaded or it is darker than it was. And I'm trying to keep these parallel to the central poles. I can't think of the name I would use for them. You know what I mean? These bits, yeah. Spokes. There we go. Spokes was what I was looking for. I couldn't speak the spoke. That was awful. I should be sent to the naughty stairs for a few moments. But I'll carry on drawing instead. So this is hatching. What I could do, what I might very well do, is perhaps with the inner ones literally do some cross hatching. I say literally, I'm doing some cross hatching. So I'm going back over these lines at 90 degrees. You don't actually have to do them at 90 degrees. They can go at any angle you like, even random angles. How closely you put these lines together, what thickness of pen you use, it all changes how dense the ink is and how dark it looks. And if you want ones in areas darker than others, you break the line, you draw lines. So you can see that now these inner bits are that little bit darker than the outer bits. Oops. Oh, good. Didn't turn it on. It's as bright as it's going to get, I think. Okay. So I've got a few there. Any others? I think I saw this somewhere. Got quite a few. I could spend. How long have I been here? Oh gosh, I've been here 50 minutes and I want to do some more. I'll show you my sketchbook page because I've done one like that, one with bits like that one. I've used that idea there, but with extra bits. I've done this one more or less, which is the and here I split these inner sections up and the outside in with 2 aura lines, with the idea of adding, I think I wanted to add some texture lines here, just to, as if there's a plate behind them, or something that supports them a bit like this. So I can do the same here perhaps, and that just keys it in. So with these, I'm starting the lines right where that curve and the spoke meet and have them radiating outwards from that point. So that was something I wanted to do, and I extended it on this section. This I think I saw on the step out, or in the link to the step out, was how you can use elements of this as fragments. Not sure how they'd work. If anybody wants to do those as a thingy, you know, use them in a reticulum and in a grid, that could be interesting. This one uses 6 spokes, so perhaps I can finish this off with a 6-spoker. So the inner circle needs to be quite big for this. And I am going to divide this into 6. So it's like having, oh, it looks like a piece of pie, or, you know, a pie collector, pieces of pie collector from Trivial Pursuit. It always reminds me of Trivial Pursuit. I haven't played Trivial Pursuit in donkey's years. Thing is, family won't play with me because my head is stuffed full of knowledge about science and nature, and I'm also very lucky when it comes to other questions at times where I seem to know the answer, I guess the answer, and I guess right. They really don't like that. No, they don't. Okay, so again, we're going to put these C shapes in. Sort of with the spokes actually, trying to keep them roughly the same size. It's not critical. In fact, my pieces of pie aren't the same size. There's a couple of big pieces over this side for those who are very hungry. There we go. And then, same as before, we're just going to extend this beyond, just a bit beyond that outer circle, like so. Oops. I'm turning my paper for this one. I've been trying to keep my everything all in one place, but here, so I end up with this. And then it's the same idea. We're just going to finish these. Actually, I'm going to adjust the shapes of these. I'm going to have them joining in a kind of partial ginkgo leaf shape. So I'm using letter C's or partial letter C's just to join them with the curve pointing towards the spoke. Just to add something a bit different, because you can change the shape there. You could put square shapes or rectangular shapes there if you didn't want the circular, or half hexagons, or whatever else you fancy, teardrop shapes. which is really what these would be in some way. Well, they're pointy at the bottom, so they can't be teardrop shapes, but you know what I mean. Well, hopefully you know what I mean. I'm not entirely sure I know what I mean. Perhaps I shouldn't suggest that. Nice thing is when I've drawn some of these C shapes a little bit smaller than the others, so you can always adjust it at this point as well when you're inking in, which is always a good thing. There we go. So I've got 6 in there. Oh, hello, Andrew. Lovely to see you. How's Sydney today? I've only just picked my head up and had a look to see who's here. And the next step is the outer perimeter. I'm sure that's a Star Wars thing that went through my head when I said that. Mind you, it could be something else. It could be Star Trek. Yeah. Feels more like Star Wars. It is. It's from Attack the Clones, episode 2. Yes. Around the perimeter, around the clones, a perimeter make, or whatever it was. Around the Jedi, a perimeter make. That's it. Oh, jackdaws. Loads of them. Never. My little furry friends. I know, that sounded not quite right. These look really rather spiffing, actually. And I'm tempted to put little. I will. I'm going to put little shoulders or collars on them like this. I think they need it, actually. These ones do need it. That adds something interesting to it. But I also feel I need to connect these together. It doesn't feel right without them connected. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So that's quite fun. And then I do want to draw another circle. I want one that's quite large for this. So you want to fill a sketchbook page in quick? Draw everything bigger. I've actually been working on A4 paper with the I'm going to draw these not quite up to the circle I've just drawn. My circle isn't exactly perfect, but it will do. Where it's a bit smaller, I will draw it up to the lines because hopefully I can judge. Ooh, that one's going to go behind that one. Ooh, that's going to be interesting. Things like this, what I will often do if I'd spent more time exploring all of this would be to try different things out on pairs of spokes and so on, just to see what would happen. And so I have a range of ideas on one drawing rather than just the complete one. But today, I just feel like I want to have a complete one. Now then, what I'm going to do here is I am going to draw shapes like this down and like this. So I'm using the same kind of shapes. You could, if you wanted to, stop in the middle and put something in like this. You are, so I'm doing some variations as I go, because that could be quite nice to nestle a bead or some such in. I'll go back to the original because I can't think of anything else. Oh, I can. I'll just pop that there, and then on this one I'll do a V shape. These do need to be that little bit longer. So they look like a serrated leaf. And I can't think of how I'm going to do that now. I was thinking about making it almost teardrop shaped as well. But, your imagination or your creativity. About 18 degrees C and 1:46 a.m. We've seen the last of 18 degrees Celsius, I would think, unless we have an Indian summer here. And you're going You're going into summer, we're heading into winter. 18's not bad. It's manageable. Still a bit warm for me, but then I am a Brit, so you know. Okay, so we've got these. Now then, this is where it gets a tad on the interesting side because I want to start a little bit above these. I think, is that what I want to do? Yes. So I'm going to draw these curves down to the middle. I am. But I'm going to stop when these curves are above the top of that line. This one is going to be just trying to fit it in there. It'll be fine. Just getting them to go to the center of the page, or the center of the page, center of the design, but from above that line, like so. Then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put, oh, 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 that's why that one went all a bit funny. Okay. So I've got the crossover at the bottom, fine. That's an alternative. Why not? There we go. We'll turn it into something. So I'm putting like a little V upside down V shape there. Then in the middle of these, I'm also going to put a V shape with the point above that intersection. I think I missed that one a bit. It matter not. Then I'm just going to join those around like so. And then on these, I'm going to put a cap on them. I'm not starting on the point, the top points of the V. I'm going a little bit to either side. So it looks like almost there's a rivet or something sticking out there. I think it would be a rivet, wouldn't it? Almost like we've cut something in half. And on these, I'm just going to give them a little V outwards, like so. It's interesting because you can look at this as being either a dip here in this part, or almost like there's a shape here. And on this one, I think I'm going to echo that shape at the top. And here I'm going to echo that as if there's a bead in here. So of course I can do that, can't I? And here I'll just put some darkness at the bottom. I could do that here as well, which just helps to bring out that shape a little bit, doesn't it? So the darkness, and they're a band, aren't they? And I've got One Way Ticket to Hell and Back going through my head, which is one of their anthems, I suppose. I like the darkness. I haven't listened to them for a while. These little bits here again, I'm putting a little curve in there. At the top, so it looks like there's a little fawn or a little claw sticking out. I'm just adding darkness there. So that's really quite nice. Part of me wants to put another aura in here, which would be quite nice in some ways. I always feel that just one line doesn't create a distinct order between one thing and another. That's just me and how I like to draw things. And I think I'll do the same here. Oh, that finishes that off nicely. I like that. I do like that. I'll put that. It's pretty rough, sort of like seeing what happens there, but it's fine. This is only really a sketchbook and idea book. So we've got that there, which is my 6-pointed one. With the same idea, you can do a 5-pointed one. You could use a 7, an 8. We've got an 8 one. Where's my there? Because that ended up as 8 points around it, and then 8 again. But I could have, split them up into 16 if I wanted to. But it's just nice. Any one other? Oh yeah, I did say that instead of using a circle, you could use another. Did I say this? You can use another shape. So let me start with. Let's get that down there. A square, which you can't see because I'm off camera. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm not going to put the C shapes in the corner. I'm going to put them along the edge. And again, I'm going to try and keep them about the same size, but I'm not worried if they're not exactly the same. Okay. And then I'm going to give myself, or create the spokes that I require, like so. Then I'm going to just complete these bits with, and then it's time to draw a square around all of it, like so. And then what's going to be interesting is I'm going to draw triangles, straight lines, because we've got straight lines. So I could have created triangles here instead of the semicircles, but I quite like the change in, shape. Then I'm going to draw a little triangle above these, trying to make them about the same size. And then from above these, I'm putting a dot a little bit away from the point. I'm going to draw a line that goes down there to the corner. This has turned out they've actually drawn another square around there. Well, not quite, I don't think. It'll be fine. It'll work its way through, honest, I hope. So we've got this here. But then what I want to do is I want to create. So I'm taking this from the top of my, you can see, from the top of this little triangle there, or close enough, a line out, horizontal and towards the center, horizontal and down towards the center, horizontal down towards the center, horizontal. So I'm now adding areas of interest. And then what I'm going to do here, just create shapes that go in. Part of me thinks I could have had these going upwards and down, out a bit further and back in. These could have done with being perhaps a bit further in, but you can play around with them. If you have a look here, you can see how this one was. These didn't quite make that perfect line from point to point. They're a bit narrower, but the idea is more or less the same. So you're getting these little shapes here, and in this one I'm having those point upwards a bit more. I like that one better. Show you again. So up, down, a little bit up and down, and then further down, and then the little bit like that. And then we've got something that's a bit different, and here, squished. Again, that Diplodocus has been wandering around my drawings today. Has decided to squish this one all out of shape when we weren't looking. Shouldn't really blame it on the Diplodocus. I'm sure he's lovely. Was she? I mean, after all, they were plant eaters, so, you know. So things going on here. So that's fun. And perhaps a little square lower down than the holes, maybe. Perhaps with so to do these, the easiest way is to draw a little L shape in the corner, and then from one side to the centre, and you get those kinds of shapes. So you've got something there that could end up looking a bit snowflakey, and you can see the effects these have had. I like these as they stick out more, and they're starting to create something that's a bit rounder, whereas these, they'd work, but now looks very lopsided. So that's Bahn. And I will zoom out soon as the zoom has decided to work today. So I've got 7 variations there, and there are so many more. If I flip back to this again, you can see how many I've got there, and I didn't spend a lot of time fiddling around with this. So that's Bahn. The next one I'm going to do today, yes, I'm going to put these all to one side because I can, is Zander. Zander is an official Zentangle tangle pattern. No Zentangle ink. Zander. That's by there we go. And this is number 7. Will we get number 8 done today? Yeah, we'll see. There we go, number 7. Okay, Zander. It's a ribbon tangle. This is my page of variations. It's one of these ones where I think there's a lot more scope for variations than I thought originally. But I'm not entirely sure whether I've got, little changes make different appearances. So let's have a look at how to draw some of these. As they're ribbon tangles, I am going to put, not that you'll see it very well on this lovely mossy green paper. I do like this paper. Zander starts with C shapes in pairs, if I remember rightly, with a gap between them. So I'm drawing the first Zander fairly large, and I'll put a gap for the end. Tell you what I will do as well, very quickly. Let's go around and just add my border on my page. I haven't done anything with borders on the latest pages because I could actually add a second line or patterns around, and perhaps I'll do that one day when I don't feel up to doing much, because that does happen. Try most days last week, because I've been focusing on this and trying to talk and saying hello to. Oh, night, night, Andrew. If you've already gone, I'm sorry. I seem to think I've got an idea that Saturday afternoons might be a good time for me to do a live stream. Saturday afternoon UK time, of course, because I don't do out much on a Saturday afternoon. As I said, it's too peoply. Okay, what I'm going to do with these here is I am going to turn them into little rounded bands. So I'm just joining these together with a nice curve. Like so. And I like to start in the centre, where I draw 2 lines, just like this, as seed shapes, because I'll use those then to draw lines off in the other direction. And here, it's come up to the edge, so it's going to stop. It's not going over it, it's going under it. Then start at the top one, hopefully. I'm not going to start at the point. I'm going to start a little bit further on. And I'm just going to start adding aura to it. Now, I can be finicky about things like this. So if I add the next aura to each one in turn, I know I'll get the same number on each one. I said I can be a bit finicky about this. That aura was a bit narrower than the others, but it's fine. This always looks very organic to me anyway, so. And now those outer pencil lines can be completely ignored, because I want these curved lines, which are getting curvier the further out we go, to connect the edge of this curved thing, the point here, down to that one, and so on. And that's basically Zander. We've got this section in the middle. Now you could just fill it with a line, but you know me, it's no one. I'll shove that over there. I've got an O3. I say you know me. I don't know if you do know me. If you're new here, you're most welcome. If you're a returning visitor, you're also most welcome. And if you enjoy what you like, or if you enjoy what you see, don't forget to subscribe and like. Like and subscribe. So I'm just going to fill this in with little seeds. I like this. Actually, I'll do 2 of them this way, because another favourite way of filling this in would be with little curved lines, and I'm going to make them curve in the same way that these clasps almost, or these bands around Zander, go, and I'm going to alternate them with black and no black, like that. So 2 different ways of filling that in. This band, oh, let me zoom in again for you. Got about zooming in. You going to zoom in? Oh, yeah, you'll behave. Cool. I do like to add a fine border here. Don't need to put one at the top. If I've just put one at the bottom, I feel I've done my job, but there's just something about it that is very much needed. And then on the ends, there's all kinds of things you can do. If I go back to my O5, then I can imagine that perhaps these lines carry on out this way. And I can grow some mucas at the end. You don't have to use every line, but it would be quite nice, wouldn't it? Or every other one. And they can grow outside of this and entangle in however many ways they would like to, because, it's the nature of the mucca. It loves to wrap itself around others and create a right tangled mess. Perhaps a beautiful tangled mess. Such a beautiful tangled mess. I think there was a mixed media blog, I don't know if it's still around, which was called Beautiful Mess, I'm sure it was, or Such a Pretty Mess. Because, if you do mixed media work, I've tried. I don't like getting everywhere in a mess though, but others do. But you create a pretty mess basically. Well, it seems that you do. And eventually it turns into something wondrous that is both messy and beautiful. So there, we've got mucus growing out the end, so it's like we've bundled up. Lots of stems of mucor and other stuff, perhaps. You could have other things growing out of here, of course, but just going to fill in the gaps between them and add some ink just to help to separate out all of these sections, because it is a tangled mess. It's a beautiful tangled mess, but it's still a tangled mess. And I can see perhaps where we can sneak another one in and add some black around it, so some of these darker areas become superfluous. They've added underneath the mucca, but in other places they actually are very much needed. I think I'll put it there, but I'm not going to fill that section in with black ink. I'm going to leave as it is, as it is. Perhaps I'll fill that one in because that was quite a small area there. Makes sense. I haven't filled them in perfectly, but it's good enough. I almost want one that goes up there. Okay, there, that's fine. That works. There we are. Of course, you could do anything there. You could put fescues on the end or anything else, and it would all work. It's just creating something at the end. And that's actually not on my page. Okay, so let's draw another ribbon for some of this. What I'm going to do as well is I'm going to draw 2 lines inside it because I'm going to alternate the bands. So I'm going to have some wide bands or some tall bands and some narrow bands. And yes, I'm making them out of 3 lines this time. So I've got, instead of one, sort of like tie that holds them together, or band. Band is the word I was looking for. I've now got 3 shorter ones. In fact, I probably don't need them as short as I've made them, but let's see how that works. Another line would make me very happy for each of these, and I'd have 3, wouldn't I? But we'll just double them up for now. I'd need more space here for 3s. But let's see how that works. So again, I'm going to start in the centre. Perhaps I'll just put a centre line in. Start there, going right the way through the middle of them all. Of course, that's good if we're going to have a curved Zander, because you've got that centre line and then you can draw the outside auras around. I'll do one of those in a moment, perhaps, because I do like curvy ones. And then I can just start to get them going together. Oh, what we're going to do here. I've got up to the pencil line here, so I've actually joined the smaller bands together, haven't I? Oh, I know what I've done wrong. I should have had these coming down from here. We'll look at it now because this will work out, I'm sure. because we've still got to go. You see what I'm doing is instead of having them coming together at the same place, I'm working my way up there, but having them come back towards the end of the other one. That makes sense. Because there'll be a smaller one back there. I'm just going to cheat and put something in there because I've drawn that wrong. So now I just need to go down like that, up like that, down, up. So we've got something that's a little bit different going on. I haven't done a very good job of that. I really needed to have these going inwards, but you get the idea. And again, sort of like start with some fescues. Just let them go crazy at the end because they really are crazy little things, aren't they? I don't know if that's the right number, but it's neither here nor there, is it? Yeah, you can see how I've stumbled with this really. Yeah. What I really needed was two of the wide bands and one of the narrow bands. Let's try that again quickly. And then I'm going to draw the narrow bands, not so narrow, not as much narrow, shall we say. So I'm going to start with two wide bands, a narrower band, and then two wider bands, I think, and a narrower band. So let's see how that works. Yeah, I'm still on screen, just double checking. Okay, so I need this to go there and up to there. That one can go that way, and then that one can go down. That works it, doesn't it? That gives an interesting shape. Oh, that's using the basic principles of Zander. But look at the opportunities here for different things now. I'm going to put that on either side of the. Oh, and I've got one there as well, haven't I? So one there and one there. Or it. This would need some black. See how this works out. That's interesting. So again, I'm going to go straight through the middles. So that gives me a reference point. But then I'm going to just let's have a look. So we've got one going there, 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 there. Works okay. Oh, come on, Angela, we're doing it that way. Good girl. Head on. Keep going. Just keep swimming. Keep swimming. Da, 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 da. Yeah, being Dory. There we go. So something like that would add a completely different kind of feel to it, I suppose. And these could just be inked in and made to match up better than I've done them. You get the idea. So it's It's a different way of separating these out, adding something extra to the Zander. Didn't put one there, did I? No, just on the big ones. Don't know if that works, but it's an idea. Of course, it'll work on just plain old Zander. So let's do a plain, let's have a look at something different with a Zander here. I'm going to start drawing them more narrow and not so big. So I may just zoom in on that one. Can I zoom in again? No. It's as close as I'm going to get. So again, I'm just going to start with, I'm going to just pop single bands in. Of course, you can play with the distance between them. So if I pop one in that's quite close together, or couple in, and then one that's further apart, and one that is perhaps further apart again, we can see how that works. Now here at the middle, instead of putting just a straight line in, I'll do that one as a straight line, but here on these two, I'm going to put a diamond in. These two, I'm going to put a circle in. And then on, what could I put on another one? Ooh. Well, let's go back to triangles. And let's see how this works. And then I'm not going to start with that line. What I am going to do is that's what I should have done, in and out. Goodness sakes, get a grip, girl. So I'm going around these as part of my O-ring. Sorry, my glasses just caught on the camera. Straight, da, 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 da. It's not big enough here really to make a difference in this section. But here we've got two curving out. Oh, no, that's better. That's a nicer curve, like so. And then that one really just begins to become a curve. This one can become a pointy curve. And we can just like so. He's going to need two more there. So we've got quite different shapes going on here. I've got a very bizarre one there. And it's always nice then just to put that little bit of blackness, I think, in the middle. And let's not forget the caps on the band. They look a bit odd if you just leave them open, to my mind, my way of thinking. Of course, at the end, we can do anything to put a finial on the end, if you like. So that one, perhaps this one I can do that kind of shape. Let's go put something that's a bit more architectural. Okay, so what else can we do? We do some going. Oh, I was going to do one that was bendy, wasn't I? So let's have one that's a nice curvy kind of shape. And I think I'm going to I ceased that one here because I don't know, see how I feel, see what the time is. 1.5 hours. So here I'm just going to put, this is quite a gentle curve. You can make it as curvy or as rounded as you like. It'll work in a circle, in any kind of shape you would. And I'm drawing these a lot bigger than perhaps I need to. But I'm using an 05 pen and it's very clear when you use that. And perhaps I'll just put that one on there. That'll be okay. And then have one there just going off the edge. So let's have a look. So I do want to have chunkier sections, I think, between them. So I'm going to start by drawing in my outer shapes, which will be asymmetric when we're going around a corner. So don't panic about that. If it all looks a bit weird, it will do because we're bending it. So one side will be shorter than the other. That will actually work out just fine and dandy. So it looks like a chain of beads, doesn't it, with little beads in between? But let's have a look, because that might, if we do it in the classic Zander, I can just work my way in to the centre, like so. I can put that central bit in if I wish, just to help me even out the numbers on each side. Not that I'm counting, but just to do something like that. I could have, coming off here in one place, perhaps a muka. And yes, I know it's gone. I've got that line going through there, but I'm guessing that it won't make much of a difference. Or maybe I can have one going off on the other side, or perhaps not. There we go, and perhaps just that one there. So perhaps I can have one that goes down here, and perhaps one then that goes like so on this one. So I've got two coming out. And then all I need to do is work out where the Zander does go at the back. And of course, there are many ways to add the mukas in if you wanted to. I mean, I'm just going to stick to fairly simple ones here, as it were. You can have all kinds of things growing out, and you can have multitudes of them, and them growing from different areas. So if I start in the centre, this is a time to not draw the outside edge in, but so I can add some mukas in like so. Not mukas, the Zander lines in. And then perhaps I can have a Zander that grows off further up. The area, so we have add some ink to them so they look like they're shadowing the Zander, as it were, growing out from around them. So again, there's one there, one here. Sorry about the wobbly camera. It's either me fidgeting on my chair, moving my arms around, or it's my glasses knocking the camera. So we've got mucus growing off. The bigger you draw it, the easier it is to add. Anything else we can add? Well, of course, I'm going to add a couple of flowers into this one before I add my Zander. Actually, two look a bit odd. So how about I add one that sticks out there? Now, if I'd used white paper, I could have put some white ink on that, but hey ho. Just add the lines behind it, and then it looks like we've got little flowers growing here. Or if it's like somebody's hair that's been put into these bands and braids, flowers in your hair. Except I hear flowers in the rain, just sitting watching flowers in the rain. Yeah, I can't remember who sang that one. Somebody's bound to Google it. I'm just having a look. Hello, Miss Sunshine Star Child. Peace and blessings to you too. It's lovely to have you here. Hello, Oztangle. Nice to have you from West Australia. Lovely to have you along. Thank you for joining me. I will go back and show you the previous tangle. I'm on my second one of three. I'm on a catch up. I've had a interesting week. I had a day out Wednesday with a friend that left me shattered Thursday, and yesterday I really felt the after effects of some medication change that's going on. I've had a rough week actually because one of a new medication I'm taking, they swapped my asthma medication, and that one, even though I was rinsing my mouth out afterwards with water, as was told to do, I started getting thrush in my mouth, oral thrush, and it was right along the edge of my tongue where there were big red lumps. And luckily, I caught it quite quickly, so the medication for it is working. I think still got a couple of days to go. I can still feel some soreness there, so I'm going to keep on going until that's gone. And if it continues, if I continue to get oral thrush, I should be having stern words with those who wanted me to change. Well, it's the new protocol. What can I say? Okay, so pretty flowers will work there. Something else that will work is I'm going to put a dot in the middle and I'm going to draw two semicircles. Then from the corner, I'm going to aura that. I'm going to put a little triangle here, little one there. And then I'm just going to Zander it behind. I'll do the same here. So in the middle, using perhaps this one as a guide, because I'm going around a corner here, so it's a bit awkward. It'll be fine. Things become a bit misshapen, we can blame it on the hairdresser who put the braid in, or the Zander told the hair in place. Either that is the Diplodocus has been through again. So that looks that's nice. I like that one. And then I thought, well, another one I did was I started with the outside edges and decided, well, what happens if I don't just aura on the outside, but what about the top and the bottom? And of course, we get a kind of weaving pattern occurring. Now, I know this features in Zentangle patterns, but I can't remember which ones. So we get a nice woven kind of effect there. Do I have any others? Not really. The only other suggestion I can make here really is with things like these uh, the bars, not the bars, the bands, is to make them a different shape. I'm using S's here. This one's going in its own sweet way as well, which is fine by me. And it's getting smaller. Okay, let's play with that then. Let's have a humongous one at the end. See where that goes. Is to use different shapes and perhaps to make a feature of those different shapes. So here I'm going to aura this on the top to begin with, and I'm going to put a little sort of like rounded end on as if we're going to cuddle all of those Zander lines. I'm calling them Zander lines because it sounds like dandelions, doesn't it? I don't mean it to be dandelions. So, so I'm not creating whole auras, I'm just creating interest on either side. So we've got something that looks like it's twisted there. If I pop it on its side. Oh yes, quantum packets. Yeah, quantum stuff is good. It's light and other energy are quite weird. Oh, I'm feeling fine, sunshine. Um, it was just painful for a couple of days, you know, and it still feels a bit weird to talk and so on, but I'll be all right. The medication seems to be working, but if I'm stuck with it as bad, you know, as it is now, then I know I can go back to the doctor and say, "Oi," and they'll do something about it. Um, quantum packets, yeah, yeah, quantum packets, quantum mechanics. Oh yes, it takes me back. Takes me back to the days of accepting that light is both an a wave, and packets of energy. And the packets of energy are discrete amounts. So packets of energy in, say, red light are different to the size of the packets of energy in violet light. And it also means that these packets of energy can only jump from specific levels. You can't break them up, if I remember my quantum mechanics properly. And quantum physics is interesting and mind-bogglingly, but just don't ask me to understand the maths, because the maths, yeah, it's complicated. I never got to grips with differentiation and so on. So let's have a look here and see what happens with these. So this is going to change the shape of these outer points, isn't it? They're going to go in a different shape because we've got these little bits here. But it will work out, I'm sure. Well, of course it will, because, you know, I'm drawing this very quickly, which means that if you take your time, now that's got a very sort of like rumpled, crumpled, rocky look to it. I quite like that actually. And then that Diplodocus definitely has been through here while I was talking about quantum mechanics. It's how these packets of energy and the way that light is absorbed and emitted from atoms and so on is a way you can identify particular elements. And using this idea that we only get discrete types of energy coming from, say, the elements in the sun, once we knew what those discrete lines, colors that we got from it, you could identify the colors that make up colors of the elements that make up the sun because they are individual and unique at different areas. It's spectroscopy. And it's used so much now in science, in forensic science, in pharmaceutics, in medicine, in all kinds of areas, because it all helps to identify compounds, and various kinds of spectroscopy have evolved as well. But you know, the first spectroscope really was the prism, and the way that Isaac Newton used it to split white light, sunlight, into all the colours of the rainbow. He named 7. So Isaac Newton was a really interesting bloke. He was one of the first true scientists, and yet he still had an interest in alchemy and magic. And when he split sunlight into colours, he decided that there were only 7 colours. That's what he named them. And because 7 is a magic number. And that's why we still have 7 colours in the rainbow, even though there's, oh, I won't say an infinite number, but there's a huge number of varying shades there, which we can't quite detect with our human eyes. There are some people who are lucky enough to be able to see an eighth colour beyond violet. And I'm one of those people, much to the great disgust and upset of my older sister and my scientist friend Liz. At which point she says, "I hate you." Sorry, can't help it. My older sister gets miffed when I look at plant leaves and I don't just see green, I can see, other shades of colours in there. I can see hints of blue and purple and so on. That's when I'm allowed to sort of like relax and calm down and look properly, which is now impossible when somebody's yapping at me or I'm yapping at them. I wish I could paint it, but me and colours, yeah. And photography doesn't work. I just have to remember or, feel my way through what I've seen. And that doesn't make me any better or any worse than anybody else, by the way. It just makes me different. And I'm fine with difference. So that is a very wibbly wobbly, but I like that wibbly wobbliness. One more, which I want to share, and I'm going to create some interesting caps. So I am going to use 2, 3 and a space. And I'm calling these caps now because they do remind me of bead caps. But I think you'll get the idea. This one, I'm going to draw zigzags, but I want them sticking out from the bottom. Now I can put these at the bottom or not. I'm going to leave that one blank. On this one, I'm going to put some petals. And again, I want them bending outwards at the bottom, like so. And then here, oh, I'll go back to the zigzags, but instead of taking them all the way back and making it more like a crown. And there we are, we'll put zigzags on this side, like so. And I'm just going to start by joining the points together and then in between, and then I can go back and add lines to split these up as much as I want. The finer the pen, the more I can put in. I can do the same here. And here. Get the idea? And then up here. They're a lot of fun. However you create these, there are infinite ways of creating these caps, how you bend them, how you coil them. Said, if you can go in curves, you can go in a complete circle. Just don't make the circle too small or make your Zander very small. So let me just zoom out so you can see all of that. I have got some going there. I could have that coming over here, but hey ho, time gets on. So that's Zander day 7. Those who've joined later on, this is the sheet of Bahn I've done. And these are all done with the same basic method or ideas, just changing shapes, numbers, how things are connected together, just a few ideas. So if I show you my page of Zander, you can see I didn't do with the edges curving inwards. That I like that a lot. It's like bamboo. So if you ever need to draw bamboo, think of Zander with curvy in sides. And there's another band. So instead of it straight, we've got that kind of shape. That works nicely, easier to draw than these. And then putting breaks in the lines, just to lighten it up and where you want that highlight. This is my page of Bahn, but all drawn with the same ideas, just adding little embellishments, extra auras, different shapes. I've got 4 point there, but with a square inside. I've got triangular ones with 3 spokes. This one started as 3, but ended up with 6. There's a 5-spoker there. Again, 4-spoker here with these kind of Eruca's kind of auras on it. It's the Zentangle I was thinking of. This is 6. You know, this one started off as 4. Where is it? Yeah, this one started off as 4, but became 8 as I added extra ones there that seem to be underneath the others. So I've had great fun with those. Now then, next one, number 8. This is ConeSSes. Yeah, ConeSSes. I had a nightmare. Oh, it's 2 N's in it. I'll put the N there. And this is by Diana Shrew. I hope, sorry if I say your name wrong, Diana, if you see this. And I'll explain what I did and how I got to how I drew this in the end. I did watch Zen Linnea do this a couple of days ago. I haven't seen the latest one though with the Thomas Padros pattern. Thomas Padros is one of my favourite sort of like tangle designers. He creates things that are incredibly geometric, and sometimes my head doesn't work with them very easily. And I sort of have to work with it until I find a way of creating the pattern in my own way. And that's fine, you know. Zen Linnea actually said the same thing, is that it's okay to change these things. It's okay for you to end up with something that looks different from the original step out. Because Zentangle is about, well, all art is about creating things that express you and yourself, how things work for you. And I think I've shown in some of my personal art where I've um, taken elements of tangles of some of the motifs and the things we've worked on and used just parts of them in art I've done, and I've thoroughly enjoyed doing that. Um, Actually, I can show you a couple. Let me show you a couple while I'm at it. Did I bring my book up? Yes, I did bring my book upstairs. How excellent! You just look for them. I think they're in here. They should be. Well, as well as, oops, Halloween, more Halloween, another Halloween. Oh, yeah, there's one. Where's the others? Have I got them in here? Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Of course but I got one in here. I don't know where the other one is. But I think it was a small one. Oops, sorry, bashing things. This one, let's get them. Oh, there's Halloween. We don't want the Halloween ones. Okay, so this one, I've got elements of Amplion, which you may not you can recognize it there, but it doesn't quite look like it at the same time. This is elements of the, I'll go back and look because I can't remember exactly the name. Oh yeah, these were I took bits out of Mary Shell and used them. And I've used these in different ways, put different tops on them and different things right the way across, and just joined them together and basically just used a very simple collection of patterns. I'm sure I had another drawing here though. Is it black? Sure I did. Sure I did another one much bigger. Well, it'll turn up somewhere. They always do, eventually. But this one, actually, this one was the first one. I lie. So is this one. And yes, it's got a dark blue ink background. So I thought I'd filled a pen from Tom's studio with black ink, and it turns out that Twilight, or I think it was Twilight, or Midnight, wasn't black. It's this very dark blue colour, but it's fine. And again, it's you've got the Amplion there, not Amplion. Yes, the Amplion kinds of things here, but also those parts of Mary Shell with other things, you know, sort of like bits have grown out, they've turned into tulipy kind of weird things, and seeds, and all of these flexy kinds of creations. And I actually enjoyed doing that. It's only A5, but it works. That was That was a labour of love. Took me a while to do that, several hours. I've now got to decide if I want to add colour to it, but I'm tempted to do that digitally. Anyway, so ConeSSes really, really flummoxed me. I looked at the step out from Diana herself, I think it was, and I tried to follow it, and nothing, it really didn't make sense. But I'll show you my sketchbook to see where I sort of like how this developed for me. Is the basic pattern here was by putting S shapes together and joining them together, and then having S shapes coming off them and joining those together, and you create these shapes that look like amoeba. And I thought, why am I doing this when I can't follow what I'm doing? I can't keep track of which S is it, which, where I put things in when nothing seems to fit, when I can just draw amoeba shapes and fit them together, which is what these are, variations on the theme. And then I thought, hang on, one of those looks a bit like a flower. Hang on, why don't I deliberately make them with four sides and fit them together? What about like this, like flowers that go together? What about these and these? And I thought, oh, hang on, that's like a centangle pattern, a different one. Everything's related in some way to another. Well, not to everything, but things are all related one to another in weird and wonderful kinds of ways. And it's amazing how one thing goes to another. So I've got these. I'll show you how to draw those, especially if you are struggling with ConeSSes. This is ConeSSes, where I think this was after I saw Zen Linnea do it. And I worked out, well, I can do this kind of with S's and see how it goes together. You don't think I drew lots of S's to do that, did you? Oh, no, no, no. Because I realized once I'd done this, actually, it's not dissimilar to what I was doing. It's just random shapes like this. And then I looked at doing it on a grid, sort of like filling these shapes in hexagons and fitting them together and filling the gaps in. And you get black between them, which helps to bring that out. And this looks like it's disappearing away. I thought it was a really interesting filler kind of pattern, something a bit different, and yet not all that difficult to do. I'm not going to show you how to do this. There are other people who are far more successful at doing it this way. This does not compute in my head. So let's do some things. Oops, sorry. Keep bashing this, the Angela away. No, it's not an extra cone in the IOS tangle. It's just a difference people have in seeing things, I think. Packages, yeah, it's packages, quantum packets. That's what quanta are, they're little packets of energy. It's packets or packages, yeah. Oh, Planck's quantum theory, yes, I know Planck's quantum theory. Oh, you're talking to LAF. LAF, yeah. Oh, thank you, Oz. I'm glad you like those. The whatever it was you said. I'm having fun. I can't spell though, but that's fine. Perhaps they are ConeSSes. Right, let's have a look at this one then, and then I will have to take my microphone off and go and find chalk pastels. Yes, don't shoot me. Okay. There's no point me using watercolor. I can use watercolor on this, but this brown color will just show through. Whereas, because chalk pastels are basically opaque, they'll go on the top. And this has got a nice finish for them as well. Okay, so my basic shape is any wiggly wobbly line. It does look like an amoeba. If you remember this from biology lessons, first biology lessons, looking in a microscope, you're supposed to look at amoeba. Yep, we did. We actually had them wandering around the slides. We had to go and collect pond water. Actually, it's from a canal, an old disused canal not far from the school. We went back and looked at it underneath the microscope. Nowadays, you get them, oh, yeah, not quite the same. But yes, so amoeba, one amoeba, many amoebae. And the nice thing about these kinds of shapes is it doesn't matter how you draw them, you can always draw one next door. and fit it in as you wish. Yeah, there's going to be darker parts where you overlap the bits to get them to fit, because the idea is they're a bit like jigsaw puzzles that don't quite fit. So we're going to fill the sections in with grout or glue or solder and, for stained glass windows, kinds of things. We can do this. Now, this may not be strictly this is not the deconstruction, but you can see where there are S's, kind of, that make this up. I just decided that wiggly lines are far better for me. They sort of like they make sense to my brain. My brain sort of like, so look at that. I'll connect to that one now. Oh, that's a very wiggly one. So let's have a look. Just fill them in as they need to. And if you have to smooth areas out, smooth areas out. It really isn't important. Just get them all joined together. So this was how I developed something that looked like Diana's ConeSSes. So my brain is wired to simplify things. It's a skill I seem to have when it comes to complex ideas. As a teacher, it was very useful when I was teaching special needs children. And actually, the LSAs used to say, actually, I understand this now. No other teachers managed to get me to understand that. So I go, well, thank you very much. That's really kind of you. LSAs, learning support assistants, they were called. I'm not sure what they call them now because they're forever changing names. This is actually a lovely pattern to just chill out to, because you're not trying to make perfect replicas of the shape. You're just aiming to fit things together. And where they don't fit, you just add inky glue to connect them or to round off the sharper points. So if you look, I've got some areas here that need filling in. This would be awkward to fit a curve into, or perhaps it wouldn't, but I can just smooth that off. Thinking a bit like embedded letters, I suppose, and what's the one? Diva dance, rock and roll, and things like that, where you just smooth things around and everything works out. Also, if you like the sharper areas, you can leave them in. The choice is always, always yours. So that's my interpretation of it. One interpretation of it. So what can we do with these? Well, if I could draw them along. Oh gosh, that's a long one. Well, if you don't want it that long, you can always split it up, but I'm going to leave, perhaps I'll make some longer ones because I can do other things with them. So I shouldn't say this, but I used to, one of the other chemistry teachers, because I am a chemist, some sixth formers just couldn't get, because I hadn't taught A level for years, but he couldn't get them to understand how to do a particular energy flow diagram. Can't remember the name of them. I can see them. And so he asked if I could help. In fact, he couldn't work out one of the problems himself. And I said, really? Just looked at it and said, this is how you do it. And I think he could have said, I hate you. A lot of people say that to me in a joking kind of way. But he sent the sixth formers over to me for me to go through the work with them, which was quite nice. Don't often get that from people. We certainly didn't very much because everybody thought they were better than everybody else. No, it just happened that that was one of the things I could do. And it was mathematical, but there was a lot of, chemistry involved as well. And it was it was about creating diagrams and then using maths to solve the problem. But the maths was only basically adding up. dividing, multiplying, and so on, and understanding what the chemical formulae meant. So I've got all of this. This is beginning to look really, yeah, it looks good. It looks almost like lichen or moss, doesn't it? Lichen more than moss. It really does. And that's why I like it this way, because I was drawing lichens a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, I like nature. Let's add some smaller ones this end. I am drawing a lot of these. I'm making no apologies because so the smaller they are, the fewer lobes you really want to put on them. Otherwise, you're getting pointy bits that are joining together, and we don't really want the pointy bits. Well, you can if you like them. It's nothing to say you can't have pointy bits, because there are certain kinds of lettering where S's are quite sharp and pointed. So, it's just a basic shape, isn't it? It's just a curve that curves back on itself, and those curves can be, you know, curvy or they can be sharp and angular. That could be interesting. Oh, I don't think I'd enjoy that as much as I am enjoying curvy shapes, because I do like a curvy shape. You can see how that's all getting closer together. So there are lots of things we can do to add details to these. One of which is quite simply, well, I'm going to add some circles where the lobes are, pointing towards the lobes, like so here. They end up looking a little bit like flowers, I suppose, but I'm okay with that, You can also put something in the middle, which means it really almost looks like a flower. But like that's a hole, and you've now got the big hole, well, the vacuole hole. Just the shadow should be at the bottom, but it's now looking more like an amoeba. Just need lots of little dots around there. But what would be nice with that perhaps is adding some little lines to it. Nothing complicated, in fact, and it doesn't have to go in the middle, it could go anywhere. So you could just add some little circles on the outside if the lines are a bit too straight and so on. What else can we do? It looks like an oak leaf there. Well done, Angela. That long, thin ones, which would vary in direction. And these could be open or you could fill them in. They look quite cool. You could also aura inside. And that's what reminds me really of some of the lichens I was drawing the other week. They almost look like they've got a rim round the edge. And of course, then that leads to being able to fill that in some way, to either have it looking like you've got a hole in it or you've got a dip in it, or perhaps even something that's coming upwards, depending on how you use your lines. Anything else? These are just the simplest ways I came up with. You could use little teardrops. Again, either open or I'll put these ones in black. So the black is a bit more dramatic, isn't it? Things like that. So there's all kinds of things we can do to add texture to them. Yeah, amoeba tangles. Yeah, I'm sure amoebas get tangled up in each other every now and again. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Um, so those are all, that's fun. Now then, you have a look at this because I'm going to work with ones that have basically 4 lobes. So I'm going to keep the number of lobes the same. They might all end up looking a bit weird and peculiar, which means it may not be possible. That one's a really weird shape to get them to fit together. But that's okay because where there are gaps, we've got opportunities to use fillet angles or filler patterns, filler textures. And that might be something that you want to deliberately create because it adds interest and variety in things. So here I'm going with just these fours. I could just fill these sections in with just ink. In fact, I will do with these ones here. I've drawn a very peculiar shaped one. I'm drawing it nice and big so you can see what's happening. But I think that what might be nice to do, I'm going to get my O1, and I could fill these in with all black, which would make it very dramatic. But I just think that it would be nice to fill them in with maybe some tipple. Should be lovely. Only pinging you here in the background is just my phone pinging at me. I forget to put it on silent when I have my Welsh classes. Oh yeah, Welsh was fun with the my sore tongue this week. So Welsh is quite somebody described it as a phlegmy language where you use a lot of, and and there's a lot of sounds made with your tongue up against the roof of your mouth or towards your teeth. And yeah, it was a bit difficult. So my tongue felt and it still feels a little bit swollen, but it's okay. It's not as painful if it is. It's waning. So things like this are really nice. And of course, I can play with the shape, the size of these. So if I put very small circles towards the edge, there's a lot of ink there. But when I put bigger ones in between, it lightens it up. Remind me very much of cells under the microscope, that does. And of course, what I can do if I wanted to, thinking about cells under the microscope, is put the bigger cells in first and then fill around them with smaller cells. Because animal cells are always rather soft and squidgy. Plant cells they tend to have more rigid, well, they've got cell walls, which is they're made of cellulose, so they're quite tough and they keep the shape of the cell. And you get lovely brick shapes and you almost get circles, but with like light, they look circular, but when you look closely, they're straight lines around the edge. So yeah, so it's all good fun. So I'm just going to fill this last one in as if it was a cell of some kind or another with some bigger cells towards the middle. I always loved looking at things under the microscope. Um, if I was interested in them, put it that way, rocks were always a fascination. Thin slices of rocks, yet so thin light can pass through them. And seeing them under the polarized light microscope was amazing because different minerals would show in different colors. And you could identify the minerals from the colours they were and how they shifted as you shifted the angles and the Polaroid and so on round. Um, but there's just, even now I'll happily look at photographs of microscopic things to. Um, oh, you are most welcome, Sunshine, Star Child. It's lovely to have you here. Have a lovely Saturday. Okay. Um, And to look at them and to find inspiration from the patterns that are there, the textures that are there. It certainly was something that has influenced my artwork and I still love to look at now. So here, what I'm doing here is I'm just filling these with long, thin, rounded rectangles that fill the whole space. But I'm going to come back and do something to them in a moment. Just want to fill that space in. Fill in the little bits I've missed, maybe. And I'm just going to add some lines in at random just to break them up. Makes it look a bit like cracked glass, not grass, glass. Just breaks it up that little bit. This bit here can certainly have some little circular ones in. And again, if I draw some more of these big ones, you can always use cross hatching or any other filler pattern that you like. Because literally, they're your patterns. As well as just plain black ink, if that's what you like. Nobody will judge you for it. So I'm putting cross hatching in to some of these because that would work as well. So I'm doing one way and another. I break the lines up, it leaves highlights, perhaps where I want the highlights to be. And so there's lots of ways of adding interest there. For these, I think I'm going to add a smaller version of them inside with a finer. So that actually looks quite cool. I think so. But you can fill them up with anything you like, really. If I do that and do a double edge around it, I could actually put very fine aura around the inside. There's a reason why I want the aura around the inside, because I don't want these lines to feel they're right up against the tiny little patterns. The texture patterns I've put in. I want some space there, some breathing space. And in fact, if these were animal cells or even plant cells, they have cell membranes. Um, both have cell membranes, but plant cells have a cell wall around the cell membrane. So they always have this thicker area between the contents of the cell and the outside world. It's very clever. It's sort of like they've got a membrane there that will allow certain things into the cell, certain things out, and keep other things out. Let things out and keep certain things out as well that don't belong in the cell. So yeah, so we're drawing cells today, having a lesson in science as well. Oh dear. I've said before, you can take the woman out of science, but you can't take the science out the woman. And it's quite true. Once a scientist, always a scientist, but also an artist, amongst other things, as we all are. We accumulate skills in life and knowledge. So that one, I didn't put the other um, aura inside it, so it's just open, but that works in some way as well. It's because the inside is open. And if I was to fill that in with just black, turn out to be quite nice. Maybe. A thicker pen required. I'm not scratching around with an O1. So these are ConeSSes, would you believe it? So we can have ones that are just open, some that are black. We could have circles that come off and are joined by little lines. Because why not? Something, however you want to add pattern inside. I'm not sure I'd use that one, but you've got to try. Oh, don't ask me about maths, Oz. Whoa, me and maths. Whoa, no. Statistics I was always quite good at, but that had a purpose. Maths, the only way I could pass a maths exam when I was in university, I had to pass it to continue study, or as part of my computer science studies in my first year of degree, was to get very drunk. and I managed that by 9 o'clock in the morning because that's when the exam was. I had the most horrendous hangover and headache after the exam, so it was coming to the end because the alcohol was wearing off. But it was only a 2-hour exam, but dear goodness, I sobered up quickly. But I managed to pass the exam, much to my surprise, and to the supervisor of the exam, who was a lecturer I got on very well with. He said, "Have you been drinking?" I said, "It's the only way I can do maths." He said, "Goodness sakes." I said, "I've got to pass this." He just, "I'll be fine." So he was amazed I passed, and the tutor was absolutely gobsmacked I passed my maths exam. But he should have known that alcohol helped because I had 2 sessions of maths a week, 2 two-hour sessions, and one was more or less like a lecture, and that was a Monday morning. Well, there was no hope to get any students at 9 o'clock Monday morning in a maths mode, not science students anyway. And, it's talking about all this stuff and it just going whoosh over my head. On Thursday afternoons, there was a 2-hour tutorial tutorial seminar session. So it was basically classwork where he'd help and aid and, check that we were doing things right. So because we didn't have to go into a lab that afternoon, do any lab work, we could go down the pub for lunch because there was a pub just outside the university boundary. It was but all the blocks in the university were named after letters, and this one was the Otley Arms, so it's known as O Block. And so students say, "You're off to O Block?" "Yes." "Ploughman's?" "Yeah." "Cheese ploughman's?" "Definitely," for lunch. And "Pint of beer?" "No, it'll have to be Coke or lime and soda or whatever." "Lab this afternoon." But then, on Thursday afternoon, we had maths. We didn't need to because we didn't have a lab, so we could have a drink. And so we'd turn up for maths, having had 2, maybe 3 pints, depending how long we had for lunch. And from Monday, when nobody could do the maths, everybody being able to do it, and I'm sure the poor lecturer was getting drunk on the fumes from us all. I know, it was awful, but what can I say? You know, it is what it is, and, I was 18 years old, for goodness sakes, as was just about everybody else. And even had lecturers used to come down the pub with us, and lunch was brilliant because we'd just sit and talk science and things to do in the news that made sense to what we were all interested in. And it was just such a good time. And the discussions were really, really good. And it's so different to how I've experienced things elsewhere in when I was in school or as a teacher. Um, and it was just such a good thing, to have those kinds of discussions and debates over a couple of pints of beer, of course. And it used to continue in lab sessions as well, because some of the ones who came down with us were in charge of labs, and while things were cooking or, and analysing, there'd be all kinds of conversations going on about all things, related to the world and science and, I did environmental pollution science. So, um, it was, yeah, good times. But yeah, so I'm not gonna get drunk. I am not going to get drunk. Oh, yes, coral would be beautiful to look up, and also look up deep sea creatures, and I mean really deep sea creatures. Some of them have got the most amazing textures on their bodies and so on. I bought some books. I still haven't dug and delved into them because they're just amazing, Mardy artist. Um, they there is something very primal about them. I mean, these kinds of shapes and patterns have been there since the beginning of life. Trying to think back what the shapes inside stromatolites are like. These would be bacteria formed from bacteria, the earliest form of life on Earth. There's still living stromatolites on the edge of Australia, on the warm edges where the reefs would be. And they're sort of like they were blue-green algae, I think, but they used to grow in tumps in the warm, salty water and under the water, away from UV light, or filtered the UV light just enough for it. Um, there's but you see these interlocking shapes on shells, animals. plates on things as well, like, tortoises and turtles, and then the patterns that you find on crocodile and alligator skin, and those wonderful shapes you find on shark skin that are like almost like sharp, pointy teeth with lots of zigzags on the end, sort of like amazing stuff, especially when you look at them under the microscope. It's so much beauty. Tree bark. Oh my gosh, tree bark is amazing. And these really do remind me of lichen when you look at lichen close. Not so much slime molds or mosses or liverworts. Liverworts actually, I think liverworts do have little leaves at the bottom, but it's these kinds of very simple kinds of shapes. But then our bodies are made of very simple shaped cells as well. Each organ has got different cells in it for a particular job, and they all look different to the trained eye, but they all basically are soft and squishy, except for bone cells. Some of the cells are soft and squishy. Some of them, we've got the hard the hard bits in bone as well. Yeah, and teeth. Yeah, it's amazing. I'm wittering now. Instead of drawing, you've got me on science again. Dear goodness. It's amazing. I forget how much I really, really enjoy science at times. I never do, but deep sea creatures, amazing. And oh, Ernst Haeckel's work as well. Oh, is it? Oh, you are so lucky. I don't think I'll ever make it to Australia. It's far too hot there. But the stromatolites are amazing to see. Um, Ernst Haeckel's work as well, put his name there, is amazing. The detail he's put in his observational drawings of things. You can find lots of it on the internet. You can get books from varying prices. I did spoil myself for my 60th birthday last year and bought it was an anniversary one from Taschen, which has got all his work in it. And it's not a huge book inside, it is a huge tome, but it's not overly huge in like, length and width, or length and height and width. It's quite a tome, but it's absolutely beautiful. And I fell in love with Ernst Haeckel's work when I was doing my A-level arts about 20 odd years, just over 20 years ago. I think I'd seen it before, but didn't really, loved it, but I really fell in love with it, inspired a lot of work I did, as did Escher's. Escher is just special. I grew up with Escher. My older sister was very arty, and she loved Escher and had a book of Escher's drawings and postcards and things like that. I was fascinated with them. So I've got a book of a complete book, a book of all Escher's drawings here, or most of them anyway. Absolutely love it. I haven't looked at it for a long time. That that is a deep, deep rabbit hole to go into. Just beautiful work. Um, wow, how fabulous! Do you know we have temperate rainforests in Wales? And some of them are regenerating, which is lovely. They're sort of like taking over the land that was um, taken over by like pine trees and things like that, conifers which have been cut down, and the temperate rainforest is expanding. And our peat bogs are being preserved and looked after because they're great carbon sinks as well. There's so much here. I can see little Salem outside. He just caught my attention. I think it's Salem. No, it's not. It's Sam next door. We got two black cats. The Salem, who's tiny, he's my friend. He came running up to me, meowing at me earlier as I went out, which is lovely. But yeah, so gosh, yes. Right, draw, Angela. Otherwise, I'll be wittering all day. I'll still be talking about stuff because everything here. So if I change my four sided shapes into something a bit different, they're not going to be perfect because like humans, we all have the same basic organs and structures. in us, and our cells are basically the same, but none of us are the same. None of our cells are none of our cells are identical. They all belong to a family, a group, I suppose. There'll be minor variations in them for whatever reason. So things like more shapes with longer arms leave big spaces, but a different kind of space between them again. You fill with pattern, or they can just be filled with simple black or colour, whatever your preference is. If you draw these small, you could fill these in with black. Well, perhaps not. But these spaces could be auraed, and perhaps filled in black like that. And again, that's making other shapes, isn't it? So there's lots of ways of filling these in. About other shapes, well, I thought about shapes like this, which they're like three-legged octopi, aren't they? But they could perhaps come together. Again, there's sort of like there are S shapes here of a weird kind. It's just I think that the deconstruction just my head just couldn't cope with what was going on. It just did not make sense. But then, as I've said, I'm often very good at finding the simple in things. That's why I like patterns and textures so much. The abstractions. Oh, that's a mutant. It's got 4 little bits. But we love mutants here. They're fine. Because the mutations lead to new patterns and new shapes. So these could be fun. I'm just going to put 3 little ovals at the top, a bit like jellyfish. So these are weird jellyfish, really. They work together as well. And of course, these we could just turn into little flowers if we want to. The 4-sided ones, because they all work as little flowers as well. So many ways of adding flowers there. 3-sided ones work nicely. She says, not being able to count. These kinds of shapes, when they're put together to create 3-dimensional forms, like pyramidal forms, are used to interlock to create barriers at the sea and sea walls and so on, they're very stable structures. Triangles are. So you see triangles in things like your crane jibs and so on. They're incredibly strong. That looks like a weird shape. It looks like a weird fish. And of course, we can have all kinds of things that will fit together. It doesn't necessarily have to be, peanutty shapes will go together, whether they're perfect peanuts or crazy nuts. Oh, that one's definitely a mutation. But they'll go together and fill the shapes in. They're all made out of S's, just loads of S's connected, or curves. Got things like that. So, what else did I get to? I also thought these could be quite nice. Have amoebas as flowers, because, well, why not? So they're just nice there. Oh yeah, they also work quite nicely in a grid in a weird kind of way. It's in a grid. Oh, I should have done that there and there. Ignore the middle line. You're in a grid. You can let the shapes spill out a little bit, but you have a way to connect them and leave space between them, as it were. So it's almost like trying to squash them into this square shape. And some of them may just escape that shape, which is fine. It adds interest to the grid. You can be as, exacting about it as you wish. So, sorry, my glasses again on the camera. So they work nicely in a kind of grid form as well, if you want something that's a lot more structured. And of course, they work really well. I'm not even trying to make these an exact shape here. The shape will become apparent as they get bigger. Just like zooming in on a microscope or instead of your eyes, using a hand lens, a magnifying glass, or a macro zoom on your camera and zooming in bit by bit, things will get clearer. You can see more detail. So I need to go back to different gardens soon with my sketchbook on my own. I've got I think I've got a magnifying glass that is, I think it's either 10 or 30 times. I have to look because I love to look at things close up because you can see so much more of what they are. I did buy a book full of pictures of pollen the other day. This is beginning to look a lot um, like a carnation. What I'm doing is I'm going back, and where I've not quite created a roundedness, just going back in and rounding things off where they are, because there's no problem doing that. They're all different, and I've started with them very close together, and they're getting further and further apart. And so more ink down here. Yes, although I'm putting dark ink between, there'll be some in the smaller sections as well, to round these little sections off and to make nice, pretty connections. And so it goes. How you put all of these together and what kinds of shapes you use, it's the world's your lobster, as they say. It really, truly is. And I just find this so much fun now that I've worked out that, sometimes, people's deconstructions, I've always worried, why doesn't this make sense to me? And then I've watched somebody else do it on YouTube or somewhere else, and I go, oh, that's a different way of doing it, but it makes sense. Or where I just, because none of these things are unique or new. It's just the way of drawing patterns. Perhaps some of them are unique and new in some ways, but it's more to do with how you create patterns, how you create these textures, these motifs in the Zentangle way. It's nice to have a deconstruction to follow, but they don't always make sense. It's like when I was teaching, the way they teach maths has changed. I had enough trouble with the way I was taught maths, let alone the new form. It just didn't make any sense. And I said, never ask me to teach maths, because the answer will be no. The kids will be teaching me, trying to teach me, because it just makes no sense what you're doing. I'm sure it would if somebody sat down and spent a lot of time going through it all with me and helping me to have those aha moments, but not at the moment. So there we go. So that works out quite nicely, doesn't it? I think so. So if I go back, oh, you were most, yeah, it's a bit like a tessellation, isn't it? but it's a random one. It's not one that's totally regular in its way, is it? What time are we at? 2:44. Nearly 3 hours. Okay. Shall I do some shading on these? I've got 3 pages done today, 3 days worth. I was tempted to do these on paper, not. I will do. I'm going to take my microphone off the Mo, and I'm going to go and get my. Oh, sorry, Bahn crash wallet. My oh, chalk pastels and one General's white charcoal pencil because I happen to have one. I'll put my microphone back, my lapel, well, on my top, my fleecy top, on the zippy part. Okay, let me just move my pencil and my pens out the way, put them back into their pencil case. Now the question is, have I got any tortillons or whatever? Yes, I have, because I have a box of them. Do I want tortillons? No, I think I'll go for. I will take that out because this is what you need to clean up your tortillons and your paper stamps. It's sandpaper, a block of sandpaper. There's lots of layers of sandpaper on here. And what this does is happily will sand off what you don't want on there and restore the point as well. And something very useful for tortillons. This is broken, but it doesn't have it. It's a very long, sort of like cocktail stick or skewer, not a barbecue one. But if you look, push it down, you can push the tip out again and get something that is a bit more pointy. And those are invaluable. So anything that's long and thin, opened out big paper clip would work as well. I'm not sure I want those. I've got some fresh new ones here. Shall I spoil myself? No. Let's make use of all of these. I can clean them up. And they don't have to be perfectly clean. You can see there how it just comes, it just takes the paper off and all's clean enough to use again. So a nail file, an emery board for a nail file would do this. That one needs a bit of a push out. Okay, so where did I put that? I can see it there. This one's gone blunt, so I'm just going to push that one out. Oh, look at that. Oh. It's always nice when that happens. I know, simple things, the simple things in life. Okie dokes. So I started with Bahn. So let's have a look and see what I can do here. Now I've got this lovely greyish background, so I'm going to look for a colour that I think would work. I've got a mixture in this pot of the Stabilo Carbothellos and the Pitt Pastel pencils. The Pitt Pastels have a different texture, they're softer and a lot more goes down than the Carbothellos. But the Carbothellos have pigment in them that's water soluble, so you can actually move that colour around if you wish. But there's still that chalky bit, and they have this hard raspiness. So I'm going to use this blue as my shadow rather than a graphite pencil. Oh, and the other thing is, with chalk pastels, you don't get any shininess. So I'm just going to put some here, and I'm just going to gently move it out away from those centres towards the centre. Actually, these work beautifully on this paper. They don't work as well on the mixed media paper because that hasn't got as much tuff as this one has. Very fine, but it's there. So I've got that there. Here I'm going to put shading. Oops, sorry. Around there. There we go. So some shading underneath this little lip here. Trying to move it up to the line. Of course, I was doing it completely wrong there, but I've added a little bit, but if I wanted to add more, I certainly could. I want it to feel that this is in shadow, but this little outer border, that white, that bit there will be much brighter because I'll put some white in there because it'll show up on this. Here, definitely want some blue here because that would be in shadow. And they're coming out from under there. A fair amount down. Move it along. Okay, I've just found my favourite paper for pastel pencils. There we go. Be prepared to see more of this. Faber-Castell toned paper. I know they had a blue one, but getting hold of the blue one has been, I'm sure they've got a blue one. I'm not sure if I managed to get it. I couldn't find it. But I'm going to have a look again and see if I can, because that is gorgeous. Okay, we need some here at the base here. Again, I'm just going to, it's a fair amount there. Excuse the squeaks and noise. It's unavoidable with pastel pencils. Okay, so there we go. It's looking, hopefully it's looking quite nice. It is to my eyes here, so I hope it is to yours as well. I may put a little bit of chalk at the tip of these sections just to give it that feel that perhaps these are curved upwards in the middle, bent upwards in the middle, should I say. And I can add that highlight then. I may actually use a different colour for underneath here. It's really nice, this paper, this chalk really works well into the surface. It's a Fabriano toned paper. Said it will take a little bit of, damp, a damp brush with very little pigment. I am going to add a little bit of shading just over there and under there, and perhaps a little bit around these dark tips here. And my biggest question here is, do I go with just one colour for shading, or shall I use another colour? Yeah, but I like that darkness that comes around there. Just think that's what was needed, that extra bit there. Of course, it goes 3 ways down to there as well, like so. So that's working nicely. Okay, let's have a look. So in the middle here, I'm going to have some white. So I'm going to put plenty on. And this is where this toned paper comes into its own, because that's when you'll see the white showing up on this. In fact, it's worked itself into the paper nicely. The graphite lines that I put in are showing through, but I don't mind that. And I'm going to add some of this on these. Begin with. I may go back and add some on elsewhere. If I want brighter white, I'm going to use white dots from a gel pen or a Posca pen. I just wanted to see what this is like, and I quite like it as it is because it is much whiter than the background. And of course I can just go back with a bit more now, because the paper will be saturated, well, not saturated, but I can add some more in there and just really brighten it up. So that works. And I can do the same in the middle, actually. Just like that. And where's my, that's the one I've been using with the white. So that's really brightened it up. Oh, that's good. Hey, I'm happy now. I'm going to put some white over these. I think those will do well with white there. I'm going to try and keep the white inside the black line. It's going to be difficult because this tortillon's got a soft end now. But it's okay because I can always go back over those lines with pen afterwards. That's really worked nicely. It really, really has. I'm quite chuffed with that. Just putting that extra bit of white around there makes those lines look a lot blacker than they were. But if I need to go over them, I will. I have pens. So where else would I put some? I'm going to look for a much darker, that's black, a much darker blue, or dark, yeah, black might do it. So I may just want to add some darkness here because that would really help bring out the that brightness if I can, as long as I can keep it where I want it. Let's have a look. So I need another one of these. That's blue. That's blue. Let's use that one. No, this one's got a very, oh God, that's got too soft an end. I'll just push the end in. So what I could have done was put some of that blue on top of the black. And that would give a darker shade of blue. Didn't think of that blue until now. But all is not lost. Because once this is all blended in, as much as I can, it does lift these up, doesn't it? The blue sections here up. It does. So let's have a look. Just add some blue on the top of it, because that will make it all nicely blue then, but a darker blue than the one that's there. That's nice. So let's find my blue I was using. Is it that one? That one? That one's white, this one's the blue. Yeah, that's turning that more a darker midnight blue. This paper really does hold up well to this. I did say earlier that it is 15% cotton in the paper, so it makes it quite resilient to this kind of abuse, I suppose. That works nicely. And then, see, I can put the blue in here again because I can actually put quite a lot in the base, work it in, make sure I've got plenty down so there's plenty there just to move about. And then I think if necessary, I'll use that black just to darken that again. So that's my blue. I'm happy with black there, but it is what it is now, or the blue black. It is what it is, and I'm going to live with it. But I'm just finding my way with these now as well. But I like that extra blue that's there, the blue contrast. Now I am going to put some white at the edges of this, just to mix in with that blue, just to lift it at the edge a bit. Just a little bit there. And I will use I'll go back with the blue. So the white should cover that up. Really should have cleaned it with the sandpaper, but hey ho, they'll be fine. Because mixing it with blue is actually fine here, because I do want just a lighter shade of blue there. And that's brought that out. There we go. So the only other thing I want to do, I think, let me just get it's my Posca pen. So I'm going to use where it goes in the binding just to see if I can get this working. I'm going to add some really white dots on the highlights of these. I prefer dots to lines. Lines always feel so, I don't know what. I don't know. Something about little dots that just appeals to me. I can spread them out so I get a less intense highlight, or put them very close together where I want the highlight the greatest. But on this, that really does shine. I'm going to put one white in each of these, one those. Actually, that little bit at the top needs to be white. I can go over the that one I put at the bottom again. I might just put white over in these ones here. I think that'll be quite nice. Actually, that little dot at the bottom on black looks not too shabby. There. And then I'm just going to add some of this white in between the lines there. I do prefer a Posca pen to a gel pen, unless it's the Pentel. This Pentel Energel, I think not Energel, it's something DX's, which are a beautiful. Oops, I've gone over the black line there. It's fine. I could put that back in afterwards. Do you have document safe ink? And they're permanent. They're a pigment ink, and they do a broad version. But there's a DX one from somewhere else. I'm not sure if it's Pentel again. There's a broad and there's a fine one. So the white there is very white, and I'm just going to do just one of these here again. Just helps to bring everything kind of back together. I'm not going to do them all, but you get the idea. And I'm quite happy with that. So there's um, some of the yeah, just very simple with just one colour. Oh, let's have a look. Oh, is the sound intermittent? So I'm sorry. Hello, Vidanelle. Lovely to have you here. Thank you for joining me. It's lovely to see people here. Is that any better, Mardy? Don't forget that I may be stopping talking from time to time as my mind just goes, it's been a long, how's it, 3 hours I've been at this. So I'm going to leave that one where it is, because I'd use the same idea of shading on this. Where things overlap, I'll put the darkest colours. I quite like using just the one blue. Um, I may go back over the darker areas with pen patterns, for example, the black and blue, just to darken it and really put it backwards, because I think that would work nicely. But I'm going to put that to one side and I'm going to tackle Zander. How about that? Okay, I need a green for this. Oh, come on, out of the way. So I've got this one, which is a lovely, I think that would work actually. So I'm going to just do this on one example. Which one shall I choose? Which one would I like to do? Oh, let's have a go at these ones, is it? So I'm going to put my green where there will be shadows. So that'll be under these little elements, perhaps on top of them. It's definitely going to be some where it goes under the border there. Some there, perhaps some here. Don't forget around the sides, because they're going to be in shadow. Again here. Definitely around here, because there's plenty there. And let me just give one of these a clean, or some of these a clean. Don't want to clean the black one, because the black one will be, has gone a bit weird at the end. It's a bit fat, thick. This one, I've cleaned this one up. So let's get the green in. Now, this one is all pretty much the same kind of density of colour, because I put an awful lot of the chalk pastel in a small space. But the trick is to rub it in to where you want it the darkest. And then with what's left on tortillon, just add colour to where you would you want more shadow. I'm not an expert at this, let me tell you. Last time, I used chalk pastels when I was doing A-level art in my early 40s. Well, actually, when I was 40, just before my 40th birthday and into my 40th birthday. Beyond then, I used chalk pastel sticks, soft pastels, to draw things. And I really enjoyed that on big scale, very abstract, very fluid. I don't have the space to do it now. And as I'm talking about it, I'm thinking, oh, that would be fab to do again. So I am just putting some white on these, just to add some highlights. And I'm working the white in, and yet it's going over the black lines, and I'm not worried about that one little bit, because it'll be what it'll be. That white has blended beautifully with that green. I have to say that. In fact, I perhaps need to blend it a little bit more, just to get that kind of colour going. It's made it very opaque. And let's have a look. Just have a bit more white where I think I'd like just a few more highlights. And just ease that in. Just tease it into the paper, trying not to mix it with the green too much, just getting it there. And of course I can use the white again on perhaps the central band here, and here, and here. Just get that moving. And I think I'd like to use it on these as well. So they look a little, almost metallic, I guess. Yeah, I'm just using these two colours. Oh, I've just used the green tortillon. Actually, that works quite nicely, really. I'm getting that soft green that practically glows, as opposed to the green straight on the green paper, which is a bit duller and darker. That's nice. And then perhaps some of this on either side of these bands. Oops, missed. Am I worried about missing? No, because I do need to go back to these and just add a bit more white to these ones because they've become, oops, sorry, it's me and my glasses again. There we go. Okie dokes. Just add an extra bit of green at the end, even of the white there, just to add that extra little bit of shadow. And so we've got that going on. And I am just going to add little dots of white here. Even if they go over the lines, I'm not worried. Just bring that out and perhaps some on this. There we go, which just helps to bring those out. Perhaps I could have just, painted them in with this. We've got some going there. So that's quite nice. Okay, so that's one that was quite complex. How about one that's quite simple? Let's try a different colour. Ooh, what's that one? Ooh, that's nice. It's a really dark olivey colour green, so quite as bright as the other. But let's have a look. So I just need that other one. I'm going to clean that up. Takes seconds to do. Every now and again, I'll get some masking tape or such out to clean off all the loose stuff so it doesn't get blown around the room and so on. That's actually a nice colour with this background green. It's more of a grey green itself, isn't it? I'm not going to do them all because I'll be here forever. Just an idea. So I'll get that green colour again. Nice thing about chalk pastels is you don't have to be precise in where you put them. Close enough is good enough because you can spread it out until it's worked into the paper. So you start where you want the darkest colour and work to the lightest. So you're working most of the colour in. So that's really quite nice. Let's add some white. I keep bashing this, I'm so sorry. I kind of like the way that the white tones down the black lines. They're still visible, but it's almost like they're hidden by that reflection, by the shine, which is quite nice. Become less apparent. Sparkle, should we say. There we go. So there's that one as well. So we've got Zander. Okay, and the last ones are these ConeSSes. Oh my goodness. Okay, I've got brown, which is fab. Just need to find the right shade of brown. Bet you I can't find the blessed thing. Ooh, that'll be quite nice actually. Let's clean a greenie up. Get that nice and clean. I'll also clean that white up because it is getting a bit mucky. The tip, it's all pale blue and green now. Okay, let's have a look. These ones, I'm going to put some in some of these towards the outside edge. And I'm just going to work with them here just to add that darker colour around the edge. Now this is a Faber-Castell pencil, and so it feels that it works quite differently in its way. The colour will move further, but it's also sticking to the paper a lot easier in its early places, so it's fine. I'll have a look how it copes with smaller areas in a moment, but I quite like this. Now, instead of using white for the centre, I'm going to go on the hunt for a yellow ochre. I've got a yellow ochre. It's not yellowy enough. Should have a really quite yellowy one somewhere. I am talking to myself, so that's why the sounds might be going in and out, because I'm thinking out loud. Phew, can't see it for looking. Typical. Right, this one does need a sharpen, so I'm going to put that in my little sharpener thing here. Oh, that needs a bit more. That's better. Need to learn to, or remember to turn that down. Let's have a look at that and see how that blends in. That does give some white, some yellowish colour there, doesn't it? Some white in the middle as well, just to zhuzh it up a bit. Actually, if I really push hard with this white, I think it really pushes itself into the paper mostly. And all I've got to do is a little bit of work to clean the surface up. There we go. That works quite nicely. Let's have a look down here. So I'm going to put some smiley faces, as it were, or little smiles in there. There's a reason why I didn't put it right up to the edge, because I want to leave the edge lighter. So I'm trying to work this in there and just pull this way, just to get some colour towards the middle, and then I'm going to go around the edge just that little bit and see how that does. And if anything, gosh, blimey, is that rain? Yeah, it's rain just come along the valley. See it at the distance. It's fine. All's well. So I can just take that centre out now. And I tell you what I'm going to do, rather than putting white in there, I'm just going to put white dots there. So I've got a lighter brown, but I've added those white dots to bring that out. Yeah. What else? Is there anything else I'd like to do here? So I think with these, I'd put the shading towards the lowest edge of these where they overlap. Let's see how that works out. I did say let's see, not Etsy. Okay, I'll do a couple more of the outer ones. I'm not going to go all the way round, she says. Mind you, I've got that far, so I might as well do a little bit more. Okay, so let's try and get that darkness in just here. The nice thing about using a colour that is, well, it's not the same kind of colour, but it's something it tones in, I suppose, is that you can keep the dark areas where you want them and just let the background colour of the paper be the mid-tone. In fact, that's something I always thoroughly enjoyed doing with coloured pencils. Drawing on, in life drawing, was using a mid-toned coloured paper to draw on, and then a darker version of that colour, or a couple of darker versions, a couple of lighter versions, including white, for the highlights and shades. And I found that was a much more satisfying way of drawing than working with graphite on white paper. Always said the thing about yeah, I'd use graphite to draw with. I had to do graphite drawings as part of the A level and throughout, my scientific life and studies and so on, but I much prefer colour. Then just discovering something else about me. I do love to draw with pen and colouring generally. And this annoys me in the nicest possible way. So on some of these, I'm just going to put dots along the outside area just to bring some highlights in where we want them, where there would be the most light, and that then will help with this, hopefully, with this illusion of everything sinking down into a hole. And I am rushing because I know I've been here a long time. I don't know if YouTube has hissy fits if you do live streams that go on forever, but I had the opportunity to spend a couple of hours or so here today. Had the energy and focus to do it, so I thought, right, let's get this done. There we go. Spot the one I missed. And that works nicely now. Actually, I like that. That really has worked nicely. As you can see, an eraser, I've got a needle eraser there, will lift up some of these areas. And so I would approach everything in a similar kind of way. It's thinking about where I want the darkest regions. So it might be on there on these where they overlap, you know, the bottom edge. And just see what happens. And even if I don't finish adding shading to all of these, it's a sketchbook page. It might be that I'll come back to this in, I don't know, a couple of days, a few weeks, years, and go, oh, I'd like to add some more colour to this now, and just see what happens. Let's try a different one. I've got a palish yellow here, so perhaps that one will bring the highlights in here. Oh, won't it just? So have I got, yep. Oh, they're all dark brown now. There's blue sky yonder, but it's still chucking down the rain. Mad weather. I know it's been troublesome around the world recently, especially in Southern America, Southwest America. Sorry to hear of all the disasters there. But there we go. So there's that one. Let me just zoom out and we'll have a look through all of these. Yeah, don't want to go out now, does it? No, I think it's decided it's had enough. It's like the remote control. Okay, when in doubt, pick it up. How about that? So that's the last one. I've done the ConeSSes, and I found drawing these curvy shapes, which are really made up of a series of S's, works for me, rather than the deconstruction that was given, which just didn't make sense. I've enjoyed using chalk pastels, both with the white Posca pen. This is a PC1MR, so it's got a 0.7mm tip, but if you're careful, you can get smaller dots than that. This one is much easier to get smaller dots with if you can coax it into working properly. It's PC1M, and it says it's bullet shaped, but it's not. It's actually got a point on it, so I can get smaller points with, smaller dots with that if I wish, even though it's a bigger size. Just don't ask. Gel pens would work the same, not a problem there. It's just I had these to hand. So there's the ConeSSes. Zander was the one before that, and I've got Zander with some shading in. That could do with more difference in the green in the background. I do like that darker green. That's a much better green to go with the background. And I'd approach shading all of these in a similar kind of way. And there's the Bahn. 3 tangles in just over 3 hours, or 3.5 hours, on 3 different colours of paper, with at least one thing sort of like shown inside. So let me just lift that up so we can see all of them. I apologise for this. This camera of mine has a remote control with it, but it does go on the fritz for whatever reason. That, though, on the screen looks so glowy. I'm really chuffed. Oh, Vida, you are most excellent. Lovely to have you here from South Wales. Um, Oz, lovely to have you here. You're most welcome. And I'm glad that you've all enjoyed this, and hopefully other people who get to see this after the live screen will do too. I just, I've enjoyed doing these. I've enjoyed having the energy to do them as well and to keep going. God, it's 6:15. Oh my goodness. I'm so glad I did a live stream because this would be uploading for donkey's hours. Um, I'm going to try and catch up. I don't think I'll be able, I know I definitely won't be able to get a video done tomorrow. I've got things on in the day and evening, and I'll be peopled out quite quickly. But and I've got to sort out some art materials that I no longer use that I'm donating to a community group or community centre here, where they have art therapy classes for people, art therapy sessions and art lessons for people who are suffering from mental and emotional ill health. So I think that's a good place to donate them to, because art is great therapy. I mean, even on the worst days I've had, the most horribly miserable, depressed and anxious times in my life, I've always managed to be creative, to do art. And it certainly was something that helped me a huge amount when I went through some, you know, even in recent times, some serious meltdowns, breakdowns, burnouts. I'm never quite sure how to describe them, but burnout must probably be best. And has got me through, helped get me back to the right place, has always given me something to do rather than sitting and wondering about things. So I need to do that tomorrow as well, because I can pop it all in my little smart car, my Binky. And yet Binky isn't the same as Binky in America, like a comfort blanket. And Binky to me is Death's horse in the Derry Pratchett's Discworld books. So, and Death is my favourite character. All It's a close call between him and Tiffany Aching, it has to be said. They are my favourite characters, and it's hard to choose between them. So, and Death is wonderful. It sounds wrong, but he tries to understand humanity because he wants to be more human. He fails absolutely miserably, but at the same time, he gets humanity perfect. It's brilliant. I do enjoy Terry Pratchett books, although apparently I've missed a lot of the humour in them, because I take things too literally or miss that sarcasm, or um, that when things go to one side, I can take things very, very literally. And once somebody's pointed out to me, I go, "Oh, classic example of this." In Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the very first book by Douglas Adams, and I bet you I've missed so much in his books that I just didn't understand. It took me about 20 years or more to understand what the expression, the Vogon ships hang in the air in exactly the same way a brick doesn't. And I thought, it took me years to understand and why that was so funny. I kid you not. And when the penny dropped, I felt so daft. And I'm not sure if somebody had to help me with that one. I went, oh, now I get it. It happens so often. But yeah, I don't always get the when somebody's being, sarcastic or tongue in cheek. I was going to say tongue in mouth. I hope your tongue's in your mouth. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me. And yes, Vida, I do agree. The creativity is the best medication, I think, far more than exercise or anything else. Creativity is wonderful. Talking of exercise, that means I've been sat down for over 3 hours. I haven't stood. Well, I stood up once. I went to get my chalk pastels. So I hope to see you again soon. Fingers crossed Monday. Not going to, if the weather's fine Monday, I'm off with my sketchbook to Dufferin Gardens, possibly. But enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see you again soon. And eventually I'll get all of Inktober 24 done. Take care now. Bye. Hwyl. That's bye in Welsh.